What's up YouTube, Cosmo here with 5 tips on emotional future bass. This time we're looking at my new remix of one of my favorite artists, holo. Let's take a little listen to that. I started this remix by using this live performance of holo here. Let's jump into tip number 1. Use a macro to control the depth of your sidechain. What makes this really useful is that I have 6 sidechains in here. So I've got 3 sidechains to the kick, as I saw in one of Millennium's Twitch streams. I've also got 3 sidechains to the snare as well. I tend to hit the first sidechain a little harder than the second 2 usually. Let's see if I'm doing that on the kick. Sometimes I just hit them all the same amount, but I wanted to have less sidechain during the breakdowns in my song, so I right-clicked all these thresholds and mapped them all to the same macro, and now I have the ability to kind of fade in the amount of sidechain, and I'm sidechaining everything on this song through the pre-master. So what you're hearing here is all my sounds except for my drums. And let's hear it with everything going on. Tip number 2, how to get your Serum saw bass to sound as analog as possible. I've got 2 saws. Some things that I try here is having a slow moving LFO modulate the detune amount a little bit. Notice I'm also using the fine tune to push one of the oscillators up a little bit and the other one down a little bit. I also have a subsine working in there. A little bit of portamento, make it monophonic. To get it to sound bigger, I'm going to duplicate the chain, and usually I'm going to tweak the octaves perhaps, the amount of the detune, the amount of the voices just a little bit, basically make the patch slightly different. After those 2 serums, I've got a limiter, got Camel Crusher, and then I've got some EQ. Cutting out all the highs. Then I'm using a limiter to really boost it up. That wasn't bright enough though, so I duplicated that whole track and made another version of it that just with the intention of bringing out the highs all together without the high one. Notice that I've played around with the amount of unison copies on this secondary track that I made. Tip number 3, it's a pretty common one. I'm using a utility to automate the gain and the width to decrease a bit right before the drop, because I want the drop to explode, and therefore if I make this moment a little quieter, it's gonna feel more like an explosion. So let's first hear it without the utility on.
Tell me, am I worth it?
And now with it.
Tell me, am I worth it?
Tip number 4, try keeping the top note of your piano chord voicings the same. Let's hear that. What that'll usually do is that every chord is going to be a little bit different. Here we've got major 7 add 9. Here we've got a minor 7. Here we've got E, it's 7th, the 9th, and the 11th. And this one's a minor 7 with more chord voicings. Long story short, they're all a little bit different from each other. The main purpose of this technique is really just to make the chord voicing really smooth, so you don't really hear much movement up top and you can focus on other elements. Tip number 5 is when you're doing a remix, it might not hurt to bring in the original track and reference your track to that song. You don't want to go less hard than the original for sure. So here I have holo's song on this track. I have key mapped the solo button to a key command. I have sent the reference out the external output, and what that does is it means it skips the master, so his track does not go through the master chain that I've added. And then the way that I like to reference is you play about 3 seconds of one of the songs and you switch without stopping. That's really important. That was helpful for me to hear how he was mixing his clap and all the reverb on that, so that worked out pretty well here. All right, that does it for today. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to hit subscribe. Check out my Instagram if you want more frequent tutorials. Peace out, y'all.